The bathroom of your dreams is only a phone call away with BCI Bath and Shower. We can make your ordinary bath and shower extraordinary. This is not a cookie-cutter design. This is a complete custom build that will fit your every need. It's never been easier or more affordable than right now to get the bathroom of your dreams. We have the best monthly programs in the industry with payments as low as $99 per month or no payments, no interest for 18 months with approved credit. The hardest part of your new bathroom is gutting and building the tub and shower. If your bathing area is old, there could be damage behind the walls and possible mold and mildew, which can be a serious safety issue. At BCI, we don't cover a problem, we fix it. Call now to get a never clean glass treated door with a no-track system at half off for the first 50 callers. Factory trained, certified installers made in the USA and discounts for seniors and military. Call 800-755-0466. That's 800-755-0466.
Welcome to the Turnpike Sports Spotlight. Dave Weishuttle with you. With sports betting really popular in this country, it is so important to promote responsible gambling, especially to the young people in this country. There's an organization out there that is doing amazing things for responsible gambling, and that is the Entain Foundation US. Recently, they just did a groundbreaking deal involving minor league baseball. And to tell us all about it, we have two board members of this important organization with us. Martin Lycka is Senior Vice President for American Regulatory Affairs and Responsible Gambling for Entain, and Bill Pascrell III is a partner at the Princeton Public Affairs Group, which is the largest statewide lobbying firm in the U.S., and they are both on the line right now. Martin, BP3, welcome back to the show. Always great talking with you guys.
Hey, Dave, thanks for having us.
First off, before we start talking about Entain, Martin, I know you're a big New England Patriots fan, and this is the first time I'm talking to you right after Bill Belichick and Mac Jones left the team. How are you doing? I know you're a big Patriots fan, and has Bill helped you work your way through this traumatic experience as a Patriots fan?
Which, Bill, thanks for checking on my well-being.
Yes.
That is much appreciated.
The first thing I thought of, what is Martin going to do now?
Yeah, I was going to say that I do have to regularly cry myself to sleep. But on a serious, and of course, BP3 as opposed to Bill Belichick.
Yes.
Now left, and I will come back to that. Yeah, he's my shoulder to cry on when I get to see him, especially when he's wearing his Giants apparel.
I thought I was going to ask you, did Bill get you a Giants jersey yet or not?
I've given him one.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
That was my form of therapy. Well, on a serious note, at the risk of stating the obvious, Mr. Belichick, just like Mr. Pascrell, what Mr. Pascrell's done for the gambling industry, Bill Belichick has done for football.
Oh, absolutely.
So it was amazing to have had him for all those years, but I strongly believe that it was time for him to go on a terrible season, but overall an all-time high.
Mm-hmm. No.
Mac Jones, let's not waste too much time on him. With all due respect to him, I'm just hopeful that we will Jacoby Brissett will not do the trick. So let's hope that we'll draft in an excellent college quarterback and that we will restore the glory of the franchise in the next, I'm not going to be naive. It won't happen next year. It may not happen for a few more years, but hopefully in a 5-year horizon, the Patriots will be back where they have always been and where they deserve to be.
Yep. Well, like I said, a lot has happened between the time I've talked to both of you last and, right now. And I just want to remind everyone, Martin, like I said, the Entain Foundation US is doing great things in the gambling industry. Remind everyone what the Entain Foundation is and what it's doing for the sports betting industry.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. So we have tried very hard to firmly put the whole industry on track towards more sustainable sector, or creating a more sustainable sector that would heavily invest in and be vested in and rely on consumer protection protocols, of course, led by responsible gambling. And besides having Bill Pascrell as a trustee, one of the most admired industry veterans, if I may put it that way, we also happen to have Amani Tume. There's a theme here, Jesus Christ. Former New York Giant, and we have also recently, if you pardon the pun, drafted in Mr. David Foster as a trustee, who happens to be the general counsel of the NBBA. And really, the way we've gone about this has been by means of education, so research partnerships with the likes of Harvard Medical School, UNLV, Bill's alma mater, and hopefully we can come on to that, Seton Hall Law School down here in Jersey, plus, and we're equally proud of these partnerships because we've partnered up with the likes of NCAA, the NFLPA, the MLSPA, as you've mentioned, and they deserve, because they're the recent addition, a special shout out, the MLB. And finally, besides having worked with Amani Tume, we've had the privilege of working with another tri-state legend, or even New York City legend, Mr. Charles Oakley. So together with Charles and his foundation, we've been traveling this country, catering to disenfranchised communities. So all in all, I have to say, I believe that the whole gambling and sports betting industry has embraced the responsible gambling cause, but it's work in progress. So there's still lot to do, and I'm hopeful that the Entain Foundation US will carry on going very strong.
Bill, like Martin said, Entain Foundation is doing amazing things at the collegiate level. I told you off air, I saw pictures of both you and Martin at Seton Hall University, school which you went to. What are some of the programs that Entain Foundation, along with Epic Risk Management, is doing with colleges and universities?
Yeah, David, thanks a lot for having us on again. We always enjoy being on the show, but we equally enjoy listening to all the great guests you have. Look, Dave, to be clear, Martin Lycka has really been a trailblazer in the United States. Although he has multiple passports, born in the Czech Republic, lived in the UK for many years with his lovely wife, Francilia, who's Brazilian. He's now living in Jersey City, New Jersey, which is great. It makes me very happy because I get to see him in person regularly. But Martin is a very special person because he's not a typical American, perhaps like me, that tends to be a little bit braggadocious and forward and, obnoxious at times, I guess. But
that would makes you a good radio guest. You make a good radio guest. That's part of it.
Well, thank you. I'm not going to get into Jared Mayo's potential as a head coach. I think he was a nice linebacker. I think he'll be a fair coach. And
you got to get him. Get him to some Giant games. Yeah,
we have our own struggles, right? So losing Shaquan and now Danny Dimes. I guess we're doing the reset button. So we'll start from the cellar and hope to get to the first floor in the next, decade or so. We'll see. In terms of Entain, what Martin Lycka has accomplished, and I'm very appreciative and grateful to be a part of his team, and thank you, Martin, for your kind comments about me. Entain is not a brand that's readily known by the general public. It's certainly known in the gaming industry. Headquartered in the UK, in over 40 jurisdictions globally, from Australia to throughout Europe and US and LATAM and Canada. Their brand that's known and recognized is the brand they have a JV partnership with MGM, BetMGM, right? But the fact of the matter is Entain, through Martin's leadership, is really one of the few tier one operators that have invested more than just talk. They have invested major capital into responsible gaming, ethics and morals, commercial responsibility, consumer responsibility. And that has led into a multi-year campaign. We've been on this U.S. Foundation for greater part of, it's bumping up on 5 years in September. We launched it with Amani in September of 2019. one of my frustrations, and Martin's been really good because not that Martin's a huge risk taker, but he's also trying to constantly stay ahead of the curve, not just doing what's required, but going above and beyond. What do I mean? On one of those panels in Seton Hall, we had multiple conversations. We had folks from the NCAA and collegiate athletic departments talking about what they're doing in terms of integrity and RG, et cetera. But what we've been trying to explain to the industry, and some people like it and many people don't, is if you're educating high school students about drugs, sex, and alcohol, okay, all of which can be wonderful experiences, well, except for the drugs, I guess I can't say, but it has to be handled in a responsible, appropriate way. We're not allowed to talk to young people about the proclivities of gambling and gambling problems. So we're trying to move the dial on that. What Martin's been able to accomplish, no one else is doing it, through the collaboration and partnership with Epic Global Solutions, is actually go into locker rooms at the collegiate level, which is wonderful and great and very necessary. But we also need to expand that to the general student body. Yeah. And we're trying to find ways to do that because the NCAA isn't embracing it yet.
Mm-hmm. You know, one thing that I love about the Entain Foundation is not only are you having programs at the collegiate level, but also with the professional leagues as well. I mean, it's so important that you hit all levels when you're dealing with responsible gambling. Martin, what are some of the leagues you work with, and what are some of the professional athletes you work with? Because I think it's so important that you get athletes involved because they have a common bond with the collegiate athletes and the present-day professional athletes.
Totally, and let me come back to that one because that's an absolutely critical point, the one you have just made about the connection between professional and college athletes. Of course, college athletes being aspiring to become professional athletes in their career, that is the ultimate goal. So in terms of our partners, we're very proud of the fact that we've got partnerships across all the major leagues by now. So most recently, we struck an education partnership together with, of course, Epic Global Solutions. They've recently changed their name, excuse me, from Epic Risk Management to Epic Global Solutions. There are the guys that go out there and do the trainings, having assembled an amazing bunch of recovered gambling addicts. So as we might have discussed on this program before, their method revolves around the so-called lived experience. So that's another form of connection, and most of these guys happen to be former athletes, including professional athletes. But coming back to my original point, most recently we got a partnership with the MLB. We've already started educating the minor leaguers, and throughout the spring training, we've also done a few sessions for the Major League Baseball players because they need to get ready for the upcoming season. Go Braves! That's another one to add to your list when it comes to my affiliations.
Wow, you were Braves
Bill's
fan,
wife,
huh? Wow.
Bill's wife's with me on it. They used to be Boston Braves, as you might know,
yes,
so there's a theme to it. So Bill and I will have another rift, him being a Yankees fan. But I shall digress. So that's what's been happening on the baseball side of things. The partnership, the longest running partnership we've had is with the NFL Players Association, and that was renewed last year. Last year, we also struck one with the MLS PA. Of course, soccer is gaining more prominence and is getting ever so popular, also in light of the fact that the World Cup of Clubs is coming to the United States, including New Jersey next year, and then, of course, the World Cup itself the year after. We've talked about the work we've been doing at the college level, and besides that, and that's the reason I'm saying that we've affiliated ourselves with all the major leagues. David Foster who's joined the board recently, is the general counsel of the NBPA, and it's needless to say that the Players Association, that particular Players Association, plays a very, not critical, then has a very strong and powerful role in terms of shaping the game of basketball. And we also happen to have a partnership with the NHL Alumni Association. So a couple of months ago, and that was an amazing experience, I got invited up to Toronto to the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Wow, okay.
And that day, and this is the moral of the story, and that's why it was so amazing, that day the NHL Alumni Association honored the Toronto Maple Leafs class of 67. As you might know, that's the last ever Toronto Maple Leafs team to have won the Stanley Cup. So I got to meet those surviving members of the team, and that was definitely out of this world. I will not lie to you. We very briefly touched upon all things responsible gambling, but mainly it was about my beloved sport of hockey. But really what I'm trying to say for the purposes of this interview, that we do need to go above and beyond what is strictly required by the existing regulation, because otherwise we'd be running a risk of not having a sustainable industry. So to finally answer your other question about professional athletes and college athletes, there's absolutely no shadow of the doubt that these guys are the perfect role models for talking about responsible betting. I suppose not so much on the casino side of things. Let's brush that aside. That if you got some of the greats that we've already talked about who have embraced the cause and are prepared and have gone out there to talk about this, then folks pause and listen, because it's not coming just from the industry. So this is the importance of one level or layer of importance. The other one is the one you've alluded to, i.e. their relationship with the young athletes, with the college athletes. Amani Toomer regularly is at NFL Combine.
Yeah.
So he gets to talk to a lot of aspiring NFL players over there. And really the message he's trying to convey, and we, Bill and I, have been helping him to convey, is that at that level, you're going through the transition from being a college athlete to being a professional athlete. Like, don't do anything stupid, if I may put it in a rather crude language. And that goes for betting as well. An absolute no-no. Don't bet on your team. Don't bet on your sport. If you're over 21 and you fancy a wager every now and then, be careful. But if you can avoid it, just don't do it, because it can ruin your career. And as you know, Dave, examples abound, the Shane Pintos and Calvin Ridleys of this world. So we're really trying to help, as part of our overall efforts, help the major league sports as well as college sports to avoid situations like that by means of education.
Bill, as Martin has said, Entain has done a deal with Major League Baseball to help the minor leagues deal with responsible gambling and have programs for the minor league level. In your opinion, are there special concerns about gambling issues at the minor league level? Are players at that level vulnerable to gambling-related pitfalls because they're really on the cusp of the major leagues?
Here's the important thing. I think that anyone at the collegiate level and at the pro level are very vulnerable. You would think by the time they got to people get to the pro level, they're more mature, they're more experienced, and they're more educated. But unfortunately, there is not a lot of education until, Epic and Entain started going into locker rooms. And that's a shame. And that's why, and Amani Toomer was one of the first people to sensitize at least me, perhaps Martin, on this when he talked about how he's involved in youth football and how he thinks it's important not to promote gambling, but to promote educating young folk in junior, football leagues or baseball or basketball leagues, what have you, early on, to explain to them the problems you can come across if you don't handle this properly. It shouldn't be treated, gambling, as a way to make, a salary, and it should not be treated as a coping mechanism. So, yeah, do I think minor league baseball players are more vulnerable? Well, perhaps they're more vulnerable to problem gambling because they tend to be younger, but they're equally vulnerable to match fixing, right? I mean, I don't know that match fixing in minor leagues is a major issue because there's not that much money involved in it. But, so I'm hoping we're going to be able to, we have some things in the background we're working on, including just Martin and I were in the halls of Congress this past week meeting with members to educate them on the industry and what's going on, because it's not always readily apparent.
Martin, give us a rundown about the program that you're running in the minor league, Major League Baseball system. What are you providing for the athletes? So will there be MLB personnel involved? What will the program look like as you instruct and give programs for the minor league baseball teams?
Yeah, absolutely. The MLB have been involved, and the program revolves around the so-called lived experience sessions. So our team, together with Epic Global Solutions team, we've got a couple of guys who actually, one of them signed a deal in the Texas Rangers. I'm not trying to be disrespectful to him. I'm not entirely sure whether he would have played a game for them, but he's definitely had a great career within the minor league system. Plus, on the team, there are also a couple of former college baseball players who, and that's the theme, all of those guys ended up facing issues related to gambling addiction. So I'd like to think that they have a very, very powerful story to tell about how their lives unfolded when then they were under the shadow of gambling addiction. And of course, at the same time, and that goes back to how this program is designed and how it does reverberate, and how the audience in the room, the major league players, the minor league players, the staff there, how they can much more easily relate to the folks that are giving the talk. Because, to put it bluntly and in human speak, there used to be one of them. They're former baseball players, so they're only too familiar with all the ups and downs of a baseball career, all the woes and uncertainties some of these guys might have faced. But the key focus really being on helping those, and as Bill said, arguably it's a minority, but there may be a few, you can never know, helping those guys that may feel that they have a propensity to struggle or potentially struggle with gambling addiction, to really come out of their shell and go and talk to the program facilitators. That is the bottom line. Provide these guys who are, of course, one of the vulnerable groups. We would have talked about this on this program before, minors, but also military personnel, and most definitely athletes, because athletes, they have their very competitive streak. That's something that defines them. They hate to lose.
Yeah.
At the same time, quite a few of them, I totally appreciate that they train very hard, but then I suppose they still have plenty of time on their hands. And when they get exposed to all the sports betting related advertising these days, then they might be minded to go and give it a try, because some of them may also believe that they happen to have inside information. So this mixed bag or cocktail, if you will, of factors influenced their approach to sports betting. So as I've said, those sessions are really designed to present them with an experience of somebody who's unfortunately slipped and developed gambling addiction, but has recover, with the message being, besides the one I've already alluded to, don't do anything stupid, don't ruin your career.
Mm-hmm.
The other message is, well, be very careful about your relationship with betting. If you can avoid it, do not do it, because it could very negatively affect your career. At the same time, if you're feeling like you already may be developing a problem, come and talk to us. Because as you can imagine, and that's my final point, it might be very difficult to do that in a locker room full of, if you will, testosterone-driven super athletes who are there to keep winning.
Well, I got to ask you, and I'd love both of your opinions on this. Are there special challenges when talking about problem gambling at the minor league level? I mean, minor league players can range from 18 years old to maybe in their early 30s. I know 18-year-olds can be naive and not familiar with some of the pitfalls of gambling. But if a player's in their late 20s or early 30s whose chances of making it to the big leagues may be dwindling and who view gambling in a different way, I mean, is it difficult to instruct players of different ages and at different stages of their careers? I'm just curious about that.
I wouldn't say it's more or less difficult. I would say that it sort of depends on an individual's lot in life. If you aspire to be a professional ball player and you're in the minor leagues and you're bumping up on late 20s, early 30s, and the chances of you making the pros becomes less and less likely as you age out, then sometimes, I'm not saying often, and this is not axiomatic, David, but sometimes people begin to explore other mechanisms for making money. And this is where you have to really educate folks early. You know, a big problem in America is in most of the world, particularly, you know, Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia, all of Europe, they've been gambling for centuries, right? We're new to this. Although we've been gambling, it's been typically black market or the local bookie on the street, same thing. I really believe at some point in time, we have to have a serious conversation about getting into the classrooms at an earlier stage, pre-college, pre-high school, perhaps. The other piece I think important that we often neglect, Martin's, again, one of the leaders, thought leaders on this, is we talk more about prevention, but there is nothing that's bulletproof. No program ever created in the history of mankind is bulletproof. It's not 100%.
Sure.
So there will be people who you educate, you try to prevent, and still fall off the rails. There is now a greater focus, not publicly yet, on treatments. And there's an organization out of San Francisco that's going to be making an announcement soon. Martin and I are going to be meeting with them to talk about the sort of the second phase. And that's important because that's where the real money costs are, and that's where governments get upset, right?
Yep.
When people fall through the cracks, it tends to be a burden on government budgets. So they have a really good, efficient way. They're in the telehealth medicine business, and they have treatment clinics. Can't be in every state and every major city, but they're collaborating now with operators and the like in the industry to try to address that treatment piece, which is so critical.
I love going to minor league baseball games, whether it's here in New Jersey. I go see the Trenton Thunder in Trenton, New Jersey, or when I'm up in Massachusetts with the Worcester Red Sox. It's a lot of fun, and fans love it. And one of the things that fans love is the accessibility to players. I mean, you can talk to players. They're a lot easier to communicate to with minor league players. I mean, you're practically on the field with them. Does that accessibility make them particularly vulnerable when it comes to issues regarding responsible gambling, especially at the minor league level?
Yeah, I would think so, and that's why that kind of education that we've started providing, and of course there are a few others, perhaps their programs are not so sophisticated or granular. It's not as though minor league players hadn't heard about sports betting and its vagaries before. But yeah, this definitely is one of the risks Because what you would very sadly get to hear today, and it applies to minor leagues, it also very unfortunately applies to college athletes, is about them being harassed on social media in the event they get struck out, or a football player drops a ball, fumbles a ball for one reason or another, 5 yards away from the end zone. And there are, unfortunately, at least a handful of disgruntled batters who would accuse them of having lost them their bat. So that's definitely something that needs to be and is being addressed by means of this program and the wider activities that the individual leagues and NCAA have been deploying. Because in practical terms, to go back to the point about the risk they would be facing, now we're all human beings. Far from me to suggest that anybody, or at least the shattering majority of them, would be doing this deliberately. But, a fan may ask about a player that has not played that day and whether he's doing well, and his fellow player might say, oh, well, yeah, he's come down with a flu and he'll be out of the action for the next few weeks. This may be overheard by the bookmaker or somebody who would ultimately end up passing that information on to a bookmaker like this, and it's invaluable inside information that might be used for wrong and wrongful purposes. So I believe that therein lies the risk. So as you've said, David, the exposure or the accessibility, works both ways, accessibility to the minor league players is a great thing, but it needs to be one of the firm parts of the education needs to be not to let anything slip that could be misused.
I'm so glad both of you are on, because something happened in the news a couple of weeks ago that I've been dying to ask you two about. Recently it was reported that Circa Sports made a deal with Marquee Sports Network, who owns the TV rights of the Chicago Cubs. The deal is Circa is sponsoring spring training games, which are games which would have minor league players in them, as well as the regular season games. The broadcast would also show live odds during the game. Do media deals like that make both your jobs harder? I mean, should there be limits on deals on media and sportsbook operators, especially when it comes to games involving minor league players?
It is certainly, if I may, they certainly provide an incentive to those players, or may provide an incentive to those players who may feel that they're not making as much out of that particular deal as they should. And I suppose, yet again, it goes for both minor leagues and college athletes. So in my mind, it's akin to the whole debate around name, images, and likeness. You would have your star players landing, in the case of some of the college athletes, even multi-million deals with all sorts of third parties, whereas you would have, again, with all due respect, the second and third stringers on the team. Granted, they might not be as great as the leading characters on the team at what they do, but they may come out of all this empty-handed, which unfortunately may prompt some of them into thinking how they could bridge that financial gap. And illegal bookmaking, yet again, could be an opportunity, of course, for all the wrong reasons. So don't get me wrong. I believe commercial deals between the betting industry and professional sports make a lot of sense. There's always been a natural link between the two, because in my book, and the NCAA, as you will know, is now in the throes of re-examining its stance on betting. So let's see where they will land. But as things stand at the moment, commercial deals are a no-no. Few colleges have fallen foul of that rule and have struck one or two commercial deals with sports betting operators, of course. But nothing wrong with that in principle, as long as it's very carefully monitored and as long as all the concerns related, especially to student and student athletes' well-being, but well-being across the athletes field, are duly reflected and catered to.
Bill, what do you think? Do you think media deals are getting a little too close to that line that they shouldn't cross over? Or how do you feel about the media deals that are happening right now with the minor leagues and also colleges?
I really appreciate this question. I'm chomping at the bit to answer it. First of all, I don't think they're getting too close to the line. I think there should be more of them. And the reason I think that is that's the way to operate in a legal regulated market. The problem is that most folks, whether they're policy advocates, politicians, regulators, whatever, don't appreciate the fact that this is going on in the back room already, right, in unregulated markets. And so it goes back, David, to something you, Martin, and I talked about previously, which was Jersey being the first mover after the PASPA repeal, banning betting on in-state colleges. There's no empirical data. There's no benefit. There's no safety rails that is resulted from that. Now, I believe it was done with good intentions, but the pathway to hell is paved by good intentions. And so I think this is good. The more these circa deals, these media deals happen, the better, because it will enable. I don't think it makes Martin and my job more difficult. It actually enables us to have a bigger megaphone to discuss the importance of regulation and how regulation helps black market penetration and helps develop a better, more responsible and sustainable industry.
How long will the MLB minor league program run? Is it just for, spring training? Is it available all throughout the year? Is it just for the season? How long will players have access to the programs you're offering?
So it's a 3-year deal that Epic Global Solutions and ourselves have struck with the Major League Baseball. Indeed, to set the wheels in motion, the program has focused on minor leagues, but as I've said, throughout spring training, we've already started dispensing sessions to the major leagues. Of course, a bit more difficult to get a hold of those guys. And quite frankly, and indeed going back to your point, David, about accessibility to those players, it's even more gratifying to do a session like this for the minor leaguers. And as usual, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the major leaguers, but the major leaguers tend to have bigger fish to fry, major, minor. So the program will run for 3 years. As usual, the players will have online tools available to, if they choose to do that, to do their own refreshers. But certainly the plan is for the program to cover as much of the minor league ecosystem as possible and all the major league teams. That's why we've designed it as a 3-year program, because there's not a human way possible to go and talk to everybody in a year's time. Fingers crossed it will turn out to be yet another great program, because at the risk of tooting our own horn, we've only had positive feedback from the other organizations, sports organizations that we've worked with before. And if anything, the sessions, especially the sessions at the college level, they tend to get overbooked. And if we could do even more colleges, then we would love to do that. But sadly, it's mainly a matter of human resource. There are only so many sessions that we can do, but at the risk of sounding like a broken record and bringing it back full circle, no, that's why we've designed all these programs to have 3-year cycles with an option to be renewed.
Well, as people can hear, Entain Foundation is doing amazing things in the world of responsible gambling, and we just talked about a few of them. And Bill hinted at some really cool stuff happening in the coming months and year. What can you share with us is in store for the Entain Foundation in the coming months and year?
I think we're going to continue to and listen. It's important, David, and you're such an important part of our being able to get information out. We're not trying to jump ahead of anyone. We're trying to bring everyone with us. But there are a lot of our colleagues in the community that just don't feel as engaged on these issues yet. Okay. You've heard me say this before, but things like the Saturday Night Live skit a couple of weekends ago, I think needs to be used as a wake-up call to the industry. Yeah, I don't want to be brash, or I love a good joke and all, but it should serve as a wake-up call. It was a very well-done piece.
Very effective.
But I don't think very effective. I don't think it can be laughed at or taken lightly. Mm-hmm. That being said, I think Martin and I are going to continue working hard and trying to scale. I mean, we know that Congress doesn't regulate gaming for the most part outside of the Indian Gaming Act, which is important. But we have spent significant time. The industry hasn't. I believe the AGA could do more here, and we respect the AGA. Martin has a role on that organization. But, the meetings we've had with members of Congress have been, eye-opening, because many of them are trying to do things with good intentions and don't realize exactly what they're doing, which is it will have just a reverse effect, like we've talked about Congressman Tonko's bill to ban advertising. Mm-hmm. We know that that's unlikely to pass, but it's also given regulators thoughts, right? And we don't want that. So I think we're going to continue to move forward with that. We're also going to continue to spend significant amount of time face-to-face with regulators and politicians at the state level, as well as trying to collaborate more. We have a great deal with the NCAA. We respect them immensely. But we believe that Charlie Baker, the head of it, understands full well that there also needs to be a broader approach, not just with athletes and coaches and refs, but with the general, broader student body. So we're going to be working on stuff like that as well. And we also have some potential good announcements with other professional leagues that we're trying to come across with. And the final point, Martin, and you talked about this a little earlier. I didn't really chime in on the NILs. You saw what happened right after Caitlin Clark had the scoring record last week. Nike pushed out massive amounts of ads, all of which will put money in Caitlin Clark's pocket, but also will create other opportunities. I don't look at that as a bad thing. I look at that as shedding more light on the industry, and that's a good thing.
We're running out of time, but Martin, can you give out the website for Entain Foundation US so people can go check it out and find out more about the Entain Foundation and really the great work you're doing with regard to responsible gambling?
Well, thanks again for the opportunity. Great to be here. It's entainfoundationus.com. So do check out the website and please stay tuned because, as Bill said, we still have it's a work in progress. So we still have a lot in our pipeline.
Bill, give out the website for Princeton Public Affairs Group so people can check that out too and see the incredible things you're doing there.
Thank you. It's It's very simple. PPAG, the initials of the company.com.
Martin Lycka and Bill Pascrell III from the Entain Foundation US, thank you so much for coming on and telling us all about the great work the Entain Foundation is doing with regard to responsible gambling. I mean, it's such a huge issue for the gambling and sports betting industry, especially when it comes to young people in this country. Please come back on and keep us updated about what's going on with the Entain Foundation. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
That'll do it for us this week. We'll see you next time on the Turnpike.